Hello and welcome to our very first episode of the podcast. This is Retro Gear Solid. I am your host Hampton with my co-host Jarrad. And and Jarrad, how has your week been, bud? I thought we'd start with an icebreaker before we get into our main topic.
My week's been whatever. Wait, I think I got paid today. Oh yeah.
Ooh. A fatty paycheck. Same here.
Yeah. Yeah, my work's been boring, honestly. I don't really talk to anyone there. What else is there? What TV show have I revisited? I watched like a couple episodes of Daria.
Daria. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
You don't remember that show?
No, I don't think I've ever heard of it.
It's I think you'll know what it is when you like Google search it.
Is it like a cartoon show? What kind of show?
Yeah.
It's a cartoon. Like a kid's cartoon or like an anime?
No, it's like it was on MTV.
Man, I don't think I remember it.
Yeah, it was like.
So it's a comedy?
Yeah, it's a comedy.
Maybe I'll have to check it out. A new season of Rick and Morty came out. Have you been keeping up with Rick and Morty?
Rick and Morty? No, I've actually never seen an episode of Rick and Morty.
Wow. Man,
Yeah,
if you're looking for a comedy cartoon, like I think that's that's peak comedy. I don't know how the hell you haven't seen an episode of Rick and Morty.
Yeah, I'm actually amazed myself I haven't seen it, but I don't have like Netflix or Hulu or anything like that. I use other means.
I guess that's fair. I mean, I think, man, in total, for streaming services, I probably pay like a staggering amount, like probably $200 or something a month.
Wait, what?
On streaming, dude, I literally pay for everything. I pay for like Hulu with live TV, which is like 60 or 80, and then like I pay for Disney Plus, Netflix, which I mean those are like 10, 20 a piece.
Yeah, I don't pay for
Crunchyroll. Funimation.
I literally just go on like some shady site on the internet and do it that way because that's free.
Yeah, I think it's just the convenience of being able to like sit on my couch. That's like the only thing that keeps me paying, because otherwise I would definitely just like do it like that. But the problem is like putting the desktop basically in the living room to be able to do it is like too much of a pain. Plus, like, I don't know. It's just not as convenient. Like, I like being able to just boot up the PlayStation, use my controller.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you know what? I guess it's just like, what are you willing to pay for luxury, right?
Yeah, I don't have a video game console, a TV, or even a couch.
Damn, no console. You just have the computer and that's it. That's tough.
Yeah, I never had any of the newest consoles. I don't have a Switch, a PS4, or a PS5, or an Xbox One.
You're missing out on a little bit, but not a whole lot. I mean, if you get a good enough PC, like, you can play a lot of console games now anyways, too.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I was like... Yeah, the last console I had was like a Wii U.
Yeah, I missed that thing. Actually, the Wii U is a pretty slick system, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of feel like we missed out a little bit by
just selling it.
Yeah, by selling it. You can do a lot of cool things with it, especially like the not backwards compatibility, but with the this online store that I think is still up. You can buy like DS games and stuff, and you can use the bottom screen as a touchscreen and shit. And I'm like, damn, I feel like that's just like the best way to play a lot of those DS games. But
I feel like, aren't they gonna like shut that down soon?
Wouldn't surprise me.
The online store.
I mean, they probably want to re-release all those N64 games, just like what they did with Mario 64. They want to re-release them on the Switch for like $60 instead of offering them for like $10 or whatever they are on the Wii U store.
Yeah, it's like fucking criminal.
Borderline.
Fucking Nintendo, man.
But anyway, so I guess how my week's been. Tia and I have been watching through Naruto again.
Naruto, Naruto. Yeah. Those fucking first episodes must be brutal. Like, I haven't seen it, but I've heard, like, Like, how bad is it?
I mean, so we are watching. It's kind of like pirating, I guess, but like it's a version that is like fan made, where the guy cuts out all the filler episodes, and he goes into like the individual episodes, and he cuts out like parts of the episodes that are like unnecessary, or like, you know how like there's a million fucking recaps in Naruto. Like he cuts out a lot of the ones that get like redundant, and yeah, it's just, and we're watching it subbed, so the voice acting is a lot better. And a lot of the subs are also redone by the fan. It's called Naruto Kai. So, like, I have to download every episode to watch it. And then, like, it's kind of convenient because I use, like, a universal media player is what it's called. And what that does is in, like, the Wi-Fi network, all the devices in the house can tap into this universal media server. So, we can, like, watch it anywhere in the house on any, like, system, which is pretty nice once you have it downloaded. So yeah, it's probably the most optimal way to watch Naruto, but there's still some parts that just drag. But I mean, overall, like, my experience rewatching it, especially with like this Naruto Kai version, has been it's been overall positive. Like, yeah, I think like if you watch it this way, it's definitely the best way to view it.
I wonder how shorter the series is.
Oh, and it's not. Fuck, man. We've been actually, not even just this week, but we've probably been watching it for, like, the past month, and we've been watching it heavily, like, almost every day after work. We'll watch, like, so it's set up into parts, so it's not like you watch every episode like an episode. He, like, bundles, like, a group of episodes into, like, an hour and a half to 2 hour long movie, and then we basically watch, like, a movie every day, if you know, want to consider it a movie, and there's still 50 movies essentially. So yeah, if you only watched like a movie a day, it would still take you 2 months to watch all of Naruto, including Shippuden. So we finished that. Yeah, we finished original Naruto. Now we finally have moved on to Shippuden.
I mean, God, how long would that take you if you just watched the show?
Oh my God, I mean, even if you cut out the filler, it would take you, I mean, a similar amount of time. He doesn't cut out that much content, but, like, it takes you, like, freaking all of Naruto, man, it takes you at least, like, 2 months to watch. Like, even if you're binging it, it takes you, like, 2 months. I swear. It's, like, almost physically impossible. Like, we even had to take a break from it because it was starting to get, like, a little mind-numbing watching so many episodes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's why, like, I can't get into an anime anymore.
Well, I mean, a lot of anime now are pretty short. I think that's the nice thing, is not only are they short, but now they come out in seasons, so, like, you can kind of consume, like, a season in, you know, a week or something, and then you can move on. I mean, it sometimes even takes you less. Like, a lot of seasons are only about 12 episodes. So you just wait for all 12 to come out and, like, watch the season and then wait for the next one in, like, a year or two. So I think that, like, consuming anime is a lot better, because the way it used to be, obviously, which is why Naruto's so fucked, is that, like, the season was, like, all year. So even if the manga was already all caught up, like, they just had to come out with new fucking content, and it was just, I mean, some of it's actually pretty good. I won't, like, knock all of it, but most of it's fucking garbage. Like, nobody wants to watch a fuckload of filler.
Yeah, watching anime back then was a lot rougher. Like, I imagine there wasn't, like, anything like Crunchyroll or anything like that.
No, definitely not. A lot of, like, it, you almost had to stream it illegally, or buy, like, DVD box sets or some shit, or just watch it, like, every week.
Watch it on TV. That's how I did it.
Yeah.
And, like, there's less options. Like, there's just, like, Naruto, like, the 4Kids One Piece, which is a meme. Or at least Bleach. I heard it was a meme. Bleach.
And then you had, like, the Adult Swim shows, which were, I think they were just still rerunning Cowboy Bebop I think they still do reruns of Cowboy Bebop even to this day. But
that's kind of crazy.
But yeah, I mean, like,
TV anymore.
I know, right? Like, I literally just stream everything. But yeah, I mean, so she's been enjoying it. I've been enjoying rewatching it. I think it's still pretty good. It's just, like, there's just moments that, like, Naruto's, like, amazing. I'm like, oh my god, dude, Naruto's, like, the best fucking show in the world. And then there's moments where I'm like,
this is the worst show in the world.
I'm like really bored. I'm like, damn, I could like fall fucking asleep right now. But I don't know. I think sometimes it's like the charm is like you wait, you kind of have to wait and like trudge through like the dialogue and stuff and like the character building episodes to like have the heartwarming and like you know, like sad moments actually like mean something, you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I suppose we're about 10 minutes into the intro, so what's up?
In middle school, when like all our friends used to do the Naruto run and do the ninjutsu stuff.
Dude. I mean, I freaking miss I miss the playground days, man. Like now when being 25 now, I'm just like I miss a simpler time when I had more time to play games and stuff. That was something I was actually gonna bring up in our game today because like it's a very short game, but
yeah, that's kind of why I suggested it in the first place. But
yeah, it's very
I find myself like not playing video games anymore, like just generally.
It's hard to get. Actually, I suppose since we have like a couple minutes before we really start, I mean, to me, I find it really hard to consume video games now because people want like bang for their buck, like constantly. If there's like a shorter game that comes out for like $60, like people will complain like to the fucking moon about it being like short and like they feel like they wasted their money. Like it doesn't matter how good the game is if it's got like, let's just say like a 4-hour runtime even, which to me is like a decent amount of gameplay. Like people will bitch about it and then you really have to like, they just add so much padding nowadays to games. Like this is a bit of a side tangent, but like I just recently got like the Crash Bandicoot 4 game. And like 100%ing the original Crash games is a lot of fun, and I'm a completionist. I love to like 100% complete games, and the 100% completion for that game is like a 30-hour like ordeal. Apparently, I watched somebody do like an hour-long video talking about the process of complete, and it's a fucking platformer. Like, there's only like 40 levels or something. I don't even know the exact number. I could be pretty off, but like there's a relatively small amount of levels. 40 would actually be a lot. It's probably less than that. And like you have to redo all of them like 20 times minimum without like any mistakes to even get 100% in the game. It's like really absurd.
Yeah, that's like,
it's not even fun.
Something I'm not even gonna go through. Yeah, it's like Crash 3, you just go through the level like 3 times. Like there's like normally getting the gem and then getting the relics.
And there's what, like 20 levels? Like
yeah. And there's like some secret levels too, but like
right, there's like another set of 5 or something, which are pretty short as well.
Yeah, I mean, like for comparison, like I don't think I 100%ed it, but like I still played through it and it was a lot of fun. God, that was such a good game.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of miss getting games that are like bite-sized, you know. I mean, maybe not bite-sized, but games that I could complete in like 2 or 3 days. Like I cannot beat a modern AAA game in 2 to 3 days. I have to like play it for a month to finally just beat it.
I miss renting like a game and then beating it.
Oh yeah, you could never
freaking for like $10.
Yeah, you can never freaking rent a game nowadays. It's like
yeah,
they're too long. They're way too damn long to have a rental.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, I'll segue into the game today since we were talking about it. Our nice little bite-sized adventure, Spider-Man.
This is a perfect rental.
It's I believe a lot of people refer to it nowadays as Spider-Man 2000 because that was the year it was released. And we are specifically going to be talking about the PS1 and N64 versions of the game. But I thought I would briefly mention that there is a PC and Dreamcast port of this game, or version if you want to call it that. And I looked into it, and I wasn't really that interested in playing it. I did know about the Dreamcast version. I remember seeing the box art going to, like, when I was collecting more, going to the game store and seeing it. But I had no idea that there was a PC version, and I guess the PC version is basically just, like, the PC port of the Dreamcast version, which has, like, upgraded character models and the cutscenes. have completely upgraded models too, and I think they might even change like some of the music and stuff like that as well. But we won't really be talking about that version of the game today, and from what I understand, it's still basically the same game. It's just supposed to be like spruced up a little bit, look a little nicer for the more improved hardware. But what were your like general thoughts on this game? I know that we both kind of grew up with it, but replaying it again more recently, like, did you think it held up, or how did you feel playing through it again?
I think it mostly held up. I mean, not. There were some levels that were kind of frustrating to go through, and I had to use save states. Like, there was this one level where you had to chase a Venom around.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'll talk about that a little bit later when we get deeper into when we get deeper into when we get deeper into the conversation a little bit later on. But yeah, I had a very similar experience with that portion of the game as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure the PS1 version is slightly better because it actually has like cutscenes and voice acting and stuff like that.
Right.
Whereas the N64 version didn't. Had slideshows.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk more about like the differences between the two versions later, but I mean, how were like the controls? Like, did you like the controls, or like was it pretty wonk? I thought they were okay.
You pressed C left and C down to punch and kick.
Oh, see,
yeah,
that is a bit strange. Okay.
Yeah, B button does the web, and then A jumps.
What the fuck? Alright, well, I guess that makes a little bit of sense. See, I've never actually played the N64 version. I've only ever played the PS1 one, so it's like, it's a bit interesting to hear it. I guess, like, to go over maybe, like, the base game, I actually really enjoyed going back to it, too. As I, like, prefaced, I thought it being a shorter game benefited it quite a bit, especially for, like, an older me going back to it. I was able to complete it in, like,
a couple hours, I guess.
Yeah, I like played it like game. 2 hours after work one day, and then another 2 hours another day, and I was done. So I was done with it in like 4 hours. I did some different things when I was playing through it, because I had played through it the normal way so many times growing up that like I had decided to put in the cheat codes to use some of the other costumes just to see how it felt like on different levels. For example, there's like a costume where you can turn invisible. There's like the unlimited web one. There's one where you're literally invincible, and there's one that's just like a standard, like it makes you a little bit stronger when you punch and kick. And you know, some of the costumes are obviously broken, but they're supposed to be like end game unlockables. But to say it enhanced the game, I don't know if it enhanced the game all that much for me. It was kind of fun, like trying out some new costumes, I'll say that, but like playing through it the standard way is probably just like the best way to go back to it and play it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't have any of those unlocks.
Yeah, the normal way to do it is like beating the game and stuff like that, but I just decided to punch in the code just so I could like try them out, just to talk about them like briefly. I mean, they're cool. It's a cool addition. Like, I miss games doing that rather than like putting
cheat codes.
No, cheat codes for one. Actually, yeah, I think everybody kind of misses cheat codes, but two, just like unlockables like that, being able, like, a lot of times the only time you get like upgrades like that or like different costumes is a game that either has like microtransactions or it's like a really large open world like role-playing game where you literally like buy new outfits as upgrades and shit. Otherwise, like, you know, usually fun stuff is, like I said, locked behind like a paywall or something. So being able to unlock that stuff is fun.
Giving you the entire game for the price it's on the sticker.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, it's nice going back to an older game and just having it be...
Oh, side note, did you remember the cheat codes? Like, did you know what they were? Or did you look them up?
No, I had to look them up again. They're a bit vague. Like, it's not as fun as some of, like, the other ones. Like, a lot of people remember, like, cheat code names for other games.
Oh, yeah.
For this one, they're not, like, as funny, you know? I don't know how to explain it, but, like, they... they're cool enough, I guess. They all are like phrases and things, but they're not like funny phrases, if that makes sense. Like everybody remembers like, man, there's like one game in particular I don't remember, but like I think the like way to like unlock something is like typing an asshole or something like that, and it like unlocks a whole game or something. It's, you know, it's just like a
hell yeah, that's the game dev laugh his ass off.
Yeah, basically.
It's like
but yeah, the reason why I asked about the controls a little bit earlier too was I kind of wanted to bring up the fact that the game was developed by Neversoft, which I'm sure you're familiar with some of their games, the Tony Hawk series. They went on to later on do the Guitar Hero games, I believe, as well.
Yeah. Holy
a lot
fuck.
of their big franchises went on to other developers later, and I think Neversoft doesn't even develop games anymore, which is really sad because a lot of Neversoft's games were some of my favorites growing up. They were like just an awesome developer, but this game was actually built using the Tony Hawk Pro Skater game engine. And when I read that, it kind of clicked. I was like, okay, I can like actually feel that this game was made in that Tony Hawk Pro Skater engine, because I remember playing it before and I'm like, something feels like a little off. Like it doesn't really feel like this game was built to be like a Spider-Man game. And then knowing that they're using like a skating engine to build it, I'm like, that's why the jumping and all this shit feels a little wonky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now that you mention that, it's like, it feels like you're like jumping like underwater or something. I don't know. It's
hard to explain. Yeah.
You have to play it. It's gross.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like you jump. The jumping is like you just jump straight up, which is kind of like, right, like in a Pro Skater game that'd be doing like a little hop, but like doing that on Spider-Man, like you expect to like have a leap forward or something when you jump, but like you kind of like float up and then fall like a brick. I don't know how to describe it other than that. It's a little weird to get the hang of, but it's not terrible once you kind of get used to it. But it's
Spider-Man also likes to fucking grab onto every wall when you're jumping. I noticed that too.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see that's where like a little bit of the age comes in, right? Because of the fact that the detection system is like, if you're touching it, you're gonna fucking grab it, right? Like that's just always how it is. Actually, sometimes I was having issues where I wasn't freaking grabbing onto shit. I don't know. It's like selective. It's really weird. It's either too grabby or I'm like fucking falling off a building and dying because it's not being grabby enough for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm just, when I'm doing the web sling, I'm just smashing R, hoping I fucking do the web sling.
Yeah, sometimes, like, man, especially, like, the only times I ever died in this game didn't really feel like my fault. If, like, almost all of my deaths were falling deaths, because, like, I jump and I try to web sling and it doesn't work. Or, like, I go to web sling onto a wall and for some reason he's, like, at just the weirdest angle. Like, he's too far, like, I don't know, he's at, like, a 75-degree angle instead of perfectly perpendicular to the wall, so he doesn't decide to grab on, he just fucking falls to his death because you literally fall like a brick and there's just no reaction time that you could have to be able to grab back on. And like, yeah, out of the entire playthrough, those are literally the only times I died was when stuff like that was going on.
Yeah, I think most of my deaths were just falling deaths as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more of a, I don't know if it's a hardware limitation, but I think it's just like the coding, like just hardware and coding limitation. Like the hit detection is just a little wonk.
I do recall the symbiotes being a pain in the butt too.
Yeah, well,
like
we can definitely talk about that one later on too. I guess like we got a little sidetracked, but I did want to bring up how I think, especially for me, I grew up playing this game a lot. I have like a very particular memory of me and our friend, I should say, Connor, when we were really little. It was like the summertime and we spent like a whole week spending the night at each other's houses. So like we would get to spend one night at my house, or maybe two, and then like I would ask if he could stay over again, and my mom would say no, and then Connor would be like, okay, well let me ask my mom, and then his mom would be like, I guess. So then we kind of just traded places, like staying at each other's houses for like a whole week, and we beat the whole game probably multiple times, and we just played it absolutely nonstop, just trying to unlock everything, like all the costumes and characters, and just like there's a lot of cool little Easter eggs in the game too, that we were just trying to find. And it's one of my fondest memories, like spending a whole week hang out with your friend during summer, like not showering for like 4 fucking days straight because you're just staying at each other's houses playing a video game. It just it had a certain charm to it, as imperfect as it is. Like it definitely has this like very Spider-Man feel to it, and it was just it was a really awesome game back in the day. I think it's aged a bit like I don't know what's the term, like beer. Beer doesn't age very well, but it's still drinkable. You know what I mean? You can have an expired beer and it's drinkable. So that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is like the game is still very digestible, but if you take the rose tinted glasses off from those days, I don't necessarily enjoy it as much as I did back when I was growing up.
Was he like actually good at the game, and then he got like progressively worse when we did that playthrough?
I do. Well, the story I was telling was even before you and Connor did the Let's Play. I do remember Connor being terrible when we did that Let's Play, but yeah, I suppose that's a whole nother story. So I used to have a YouTube channel growing up, and it was like Connor came over, and I had my mom's computer with a built-in webcam set up on a table pointing the TV screen, and we played through the entirety of Spider-Man together. And yeah, I mean, you're right. I feel like I remember watching that over again a little bit before doing this episode, and yeah, I just remember I was such an asshole. I'm sitting here like yelling at him because he sucks at it and he keeps dying, even though it really doesn't matter. But it was just like, it was pretty hilarious watching it back again.
Probably so cringy in my teenage years.
Yeah, some of that stuff is harder to watch back on. But was that like your first ever experience with that game? Was that Let's Play that we had done together?
Yeah, I think so. That was like 10 years ago. Think about it.
Maybe even longer, to be honest.
Yeah, we were like freshman, sophomore, I think, in high school. When we were
something
doing
like that. Maybe even younger. I feel like I remember I started doing YouTube videos when I was like in 8th grade or something, which is pretty wild to think about. Yeah, but do you remember what you thought about it then? Like, were you a little nostalgic for the game playing it now, or is it still kind of the same? Like, you thought it was okay back then, and it's still just kind of like, well, whatever you think about it, pretty good.
I mean, I don't know, like, can a game, like, age worse than it did, like, 10 years ago? Like, I feel like it's the same now than it was.
Yeah, probably just about. I would say, like, to play a game like that, you really gotta kind of put yourself in the shoes of, like, what would it have been like back in, like, 2000, like, playing it on a PS1, when, a game like Spider-Man 2 for the PS2 hadn't even been out yet. So, web-slinging through the air, like, hanging on the fucking clouds was, like, the best that they could do at the time. And it was the best that they could do up until that game.
That's something else we can bring up.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you know what? I actually, I really liked that they did that. It was, like, I liked how they tied in the story with, like, the hardware limitations. So, like, you couldn't go on the ground and be, like, in New York City and stuff like that because the fog was preventing you from it, which was turning everybody, like, into symbiotes or something like that, was, like, really how the story went.
It's like Superman 64, but a million times better.
Basically. Yeah, so, I mean, I thought that was, like, a really interesting way to, like, it's kind of like what Silent Hill did, how, like, the fog in Silent Hill was used to its advantage. I thought that was, those are, like, really the only two examples where I can think of games actually using, like, fog distance to its advantage. Although you aren't actually outside very often in this game. I think it's
no,
like...
you're in a building most of the time.
Especially later on. But we'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, I thought that was a really great way to like incorporate that into the story. And I guess just to briefly kind of like talk about the story, but not really. I wanted to like just gloss over how like the Spider-Man that we see here is very much like inspired by the TV show, and the whole like styling and like look of Spider-Man is like very like 90s, like the Amazing Spider-Man, the comic book, and the Amazing Spider-Man TV show. And I think that's like a look that's kind of fun to go back to, because I think that version of Spider-Man is one of the best, especially in a world now where we have like the cinematic universe kind of like taking over everything. It's cool to see a more cartoon look.
This came out like a couple years before the Tobey Maguire movies, I think.
I mean, I think it might have even only been 1 year, maybe 2, because I do remember a story when the first Tobey Maguire movie was coming out, that there was a scene, you probably remember this, and I think it might even be in like an extended DVD, which is weird to think about, because I bet that wouldn't have flown nowadays. They probably would have just completely cut it, even in like a, you know, promotion, or you know what I mean, like an extended DVD collection. But there's a scene where Spider-Man flies in between the Twin Towers.
Hell
and they removed that from the movie. So it might have only been 1 year.
Yeah, because Spider-Man 2 for PS2, like it obviously has like the look of a movie. Like it looks more like, tries to be like more realistic.
Right, exactly. Well, and so does the first Spider-Man on the PS2 as well, which plays a lot like this game, but you know, ends up being, you're right, it looks like Tobey Maguire, you know what I mean? Like they put his face in three-dimensional like PS2 world.
I didn't even know they did a game on the first movie.
Yeah, it plays a lot like this game, but like, you know, just based off the first movie, you know what I mean?
Everyone
like, just imagine
everyone
that.
talks about Spider-Man 2, no one talks about the first one.
It's not a bad
in terms
game.
Of the game, yeah.
I would prefer playing this one because the story and stuff is more catered to the 90s Spider-Man, which I grew up with. So that was like the version I do love the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, don't get me wrong, but like I also just really love the Amazing Spider-Man TV show. Like I grew up with that shit. This is like really the only gaming experience that like properly kind of ties in the TV universe with like a video game, even though interestingly enough, this game takes place like in a completely separate like universe from the TV show. Like I don't know if you've heard of like the Marvel like universes and shit. So anytime they come out with like a game or like a comic book or whatever, apparently they all exist canonically, like they are real, but they're all in different universes. So this video game takes place in its own special universe, even though it's like clearly basically the same thing as like the TV show universe. But
I haven't seen
so that was kind of interesting,
except for that one meme show from like the 60s where Spider-Man's like,
oh yeah, that's terrible,
pointing at each other.
But yeah, for example, that's in its own universe. Like that meme TV show is supposed to be in its own like, you know, canonical universe apparently.
I guess that's how they like try to handle with retcons and stuff.
Right. Well, and like it kind of makes room so that like different universes, like Spider-Mans, can all meet up in like one area and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing, but yeah. Even though the like plot line and stuff doesn't really follow the TV show, like the way a lot of the characters are, oh my gosh, the way a lot of the characters are you know, very inspired from the show. And actually a lot of the voice actors come over from that original show as well, which is super nice.
I didn't think they had the money for that.
Hey man, it's Activision. Even Activision back then was worth megabucks, you know?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Anything else on that, or?
No, not really, actually. I think we could probably move on to, like, the bigger picture. Do you want to go back over, like, difference between the N64 and PS1 version? I can only speak for the PS1. I know that you've seen both, but I've only ever played the PS1 one. So anytime you tell me something about the N64 version, it's very new to me.
Yeah. So most of the voice acting in the PS1 version is probably not in the N64 version.
Yeah, there's still like in-game talking, right? Like Venom and like even the Lizard, when he makes his really brief appearance, will still talk because it's all in-game, but the actual like FMV cutscenes are all taken out. Yes, yeah, stuff like that. Right, yeah.
I'm out of here. Yeah, I don't remember if I heard the Stan Lee stuff, but
I kind of forgot to bring that up, but like Stan Lee does this little narration in the opening. Is that not in the N64 version?
I don't think so.
I'm not gonna lie, like he's been gone for a little while now, and it was kind of just really nice to go back and hear a younger Stan Lee like talk again. You know, it's like a little time capsule. It was like very strange hearing him like feel very alive in that little opening. He narrates a couple other parts in the games too, but I think most people remember him talking and narrating like the little opening bit. But I'm very surprised that is not in the Nintendo 64 version, because I wouldn't have thought that would have taken very much effort to put in.
Yeah. They have to like cut corners everywhere. Like the music, it's like 5-second loops all the time.
Well, that was one thing I was going to bring up as well. Before we closed out, was I was going to talk about the music, because it's also a 5-second loop in the PS1 version too. So
wait, why? So
I don't know. But yeah, so I mean, I guess it kind of loses a little bit of its charm, because I was like gonna talk about, you know, how I liked the voice acting and like how some of the characters are like this is like some of my favorite iterations of these characters coming up. But man, I guess you can't even really comment on it, because you don't even really get to hear them whatsoever, outside of Scorpion, which I guess, well, there's like the talking that they do when you're doing like their boss battles and stuff, but man, Scorpion's probably one of the most like annoying.
Scorpion. He's like that boss fight towards the end, right?
No, the Jameson.
Oh,
the one you were talking about, yeah.
I'm out of here. You literally hear it every like 5 seconds.
I know. So... it's so bad.
Venom's another one where it's like
See, okay, I was gonna talk about how this version of Venom, I've heard that people really don't like this Venom, and I don't know, maybe you're in that same boat, but this version of Venom is like personally like one of my favorites, and like I know people want him to be like this really serious like bad guy that like wants to kill Peter because of all the stuff he did, but like I think he has his time doing that already, like before the events of this game takes place. Like he's already gone through all that and reformed, if that makes sense. And this is like supposed to be good guy Venom, right? But then he feels fucked over by Spider-Man once we see like the opening bit in the story, right? And like he kind of is a bit hammy, you know? He's like fucking with Peter because he's like pissed off at him. I don't think he's like very intentionally
trying to kill him.
Right. I mean, I think he kind of is, because he thinks that Peter's a bad guy, but at the same time I think he's, you know, I don't know, it's a bit more hammed up, but I think it's like a bit more proper than what people make it out to be, because he's not supposed to be a bad guy in this game. He is like the good
anti-hero.
He is the good Eddie Brock at this point in the Spider-Man story. So I don't know, a lot of it's, and like sometimes you need a little bit of comic relief, and to me that's like what Venom is for the most part, and he's still very intimidating even outside of like you know, the hammed up voice lines and stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely did notice the comedic vibe with this game. That one cutscene where Venom and Spider-Man are like going through that building that I had to watch a million times because I kept failing the level. Watch that first step, Parker. It's a doozy. Ooh,
oh my gosh.
Sorry, lady. Didn't see a thing.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about the specific levels in the second half. Yeah, the voice acting, yeah, it's all good. You know, when you bring over TV show voice actors, it's gonna be good. And I just think that like the Venom version is to me like one of my favorites because it never gets revisited again, and it's just a bit refreshing to have like a different look at a character. I mean, there's like parts where to me it's like not good. Like Scorpion is extremely annoying in the first bit. Like I just think the guy's trying too hard to like have this. I don't know what the hell you want to call that voice. He's trying to be like scruffy or something, but he kind of just sounds like he's choking on a hot dog. I don't know. Like
Jameson.
Yeah, I mean overall, what did you think about like the voice acting from what you got to see outside of the FMVs? Was it like good, bad?
Yeah, it was just good overall. I mean, I liked it. It was.
Did you get to talk to the lizard? Did you miss that part?
The lizard. When was that?
In the sewers, when you like have to go down the waterways and basically just reach the end because it's like a maze.
Oh yeah, I did. I think.
You saw the lizard?
Yeah.
I thought that guy was going a little over the top. He's like, by the third waterway. He's like, I don't know, trying to sound like he's like some snake, like, or like, I don't know, like sucking up saliva or some shit. I was like, what the fuck? Not all the voice actors from the show carried over, and you could definitely tell the ones that they didn't pull.
Did and didn't.
Yeah.
See, I couldn't tell a difference because I didn't watch the show, but
right, exactly. Graphically, I thought this game actually, for at least the PS1 standards, held up really well. We talked about like the fog distance and how they use it to their advantage. I also thought that like what they did with like Venom to make it seem like the symbiote was like going crazy was like really interesting, like watching like the flat textures like morph out of his body and stuff. I thought that was a really like interesting way of you know like making him do that, if that makes sense. I don't know.
He looked like goop.
Yeah, I thought it like, even though he's a very stagnant like model, I thought like making the like flat textures come out of his body really like enhanced the symbioteness of him, and I thought it was like a cool way to approach you know, making him more like the TV show in that aspect. One thing I really did notice, because of the graphics seem like pretty good for the time, right? The level sizes are actually really, really, really small. Like they're basically like 2 rooms almost, and that's about it. I don't know if you also noticed that on your playthrough as well.
That, yeah.
Growing up, I didn't remember loading as much as I ended up loading playing through this game again, which, I mean, you could say that about a lot of like older games, but this one I just thought was particularly bad, and I don't know like what the limitation was that made them do that, but you can definitely tell that like they're just making these small rooms, and they add like puzzles and padding so that you like use up more time in this small room before moving on, if that makes sense, so that the room feels bigger than what it is.
Yeah.
So like a lot of the puzzles and stuff as you go through the game end up just like existing, I think, because of how small everything is. Otherwise you'd be blowing through these levels like in
fast.
5 minutes. Not even. I don't even know. I think you could run to the end in quicker than 5 minutes if you really tried. And there's like really weird transitions too, where you'll come to, well, I'm sure you remember. Do you remember like in the sewer, in one of the sewer levels, when like the door shuts on you and Spider-Man runs up, he's like, "Let me in, Venom," and he's like, "Who is it?"
Who is it?
Do you remember that part?
Yeah.
They have these weird transitions like that where they are like having like something happen like that, right? And then like there's a small loading screen, and then you continue on with the same quote unquote level, but really they're like loading in a brand new area. So did you think that was effective? Did you feel like the levels were too small? Like, what was your thought on it?
I did notice that, like, after every level, like, you save the game, and it's like, wow, I'm doing this a lot, actually.
Yeah, the saving is a bit obnoxious, but I mean, 5-year-old me appreciated it, I think, because I'm like, I never want to forget that level was so hard. I need to save right now. I'm like anxious. Yeah, you do save very frequently. Do you think that like the level design overall was good, or do you think that it was like too small? I mean, what was your thoughts?
The best levels that took advantage of like what you had was like the ones where you get to swing across the rooftops and stuff, because that felt the most Spider-Man-y.
I kind of
Also,
thought
the ones
so too.
where you hanged on the ceiling, like the hostage rescue one, I thought that was pretty good, because like the ceiling was like see-through. But I needed to like fool around with my emulator to like see through the ceiling, because it didn't let me if I like played the game normally for whatever reason.
That is very interesting. Yeah, emulation is a bit weird. Like that. I had a problem with my emulator too. Wasn't that big of a problem, but
I had a few issues with slowdown. That's probably the emulator. It's probably not the game.
It could have been the game too. I mean, I remember playing the original PS1 version, and I had plenty of moments of like hardcore slowdown in the game. So what I did with my emulator, just to like, you know, I know this is a bit off topic from what we were talking about, but you can, with the emulator I was using, I could bump up the CPU like processing speed by like a percentage. So I think I set it to like 110 or 120%, and it got rid of like all the lag basically. For some games it'll make like weird shit happen. Like I did have a moment in this game that I'll talk about later where there's a pretty bad glitch because of it, but for the most part it really smooths out like the frame rate and stuff like that. And I had this game looking really good in the emulator, actually. Like that's why I was saying the graphics held up so well. Is like you can have like these small like visual enhancements in the emulator itself that makes like the lines and stuff a lot more crisp. And yeah, I had this game looking actually like really, really good, I thought. And that's why I said it held up so well, because some games when I try to do that, the graphics just aren't very good to begin with. Like if you try doing it to Final Fantasy VII with like the freaking dumbbell arms and shit, it doesn't end up looking any better. But for this game, I thought the models and stuff that they were using were really good, but like obviously the hardware limitations made them have like lower, I don't want to say like not polygons, but had a lower like resolution basically on the models and stuff than what they had actually built.
Oh yeah, when I was like struggling with my emulator, it looked not as good. Like I noticed like there was a lot of lines and stuff, but I was just trying to get the game to work.
Might have to get a new emulation package or some shit. This isn't a very hard game to run from what I'm
using Project 64, which like I don't know of a better emulator.
Bulletproof, yeah.
I'm just maybe like my settings are just off. I don't know. Like,
yeah, they can get a little fidgety sometimes, but yeah, I mean, like graphically and stuff, you thought it was like good, holding up. Thought the level design was small. Yeah, I do kind of agree that like it seemed to me like the best Spider-Man levels, I will say, were in the first half of the game, and you kind of take a pretty drastic change in playstyle later on from being like the, you know, going on rooftops, web-slinging, like taking out generic baddies, saving a couple pedestrians, to, you know, being in a sewer and being all crammed and like solving puzzles. It's a bit different the further you get into the game. I'll say that. Which is weird.
Another minor gripe: there aren't enough like variety of enemies, and for a beat 'em up, that's kind of, I don't know. There's like the policemen, those like hostage guys, the symbiotes, the lizards. That's like it. There's like 4 bad guys in the game, like generic ones.
Yeah, there's like 2 different kinds of generic thugs. I think there's 2 different kinds of generic policemen. I think there's the lizard men, which are all the same, and there's the symbiotes, which are all the same.
Hey!
I think that's it. I think that's literally it. Yeah, so I mean the cast of enemies is pretty small, but there are a good amount of boss battles. But you know, I don't know if that really supplements it enough. I feel like just generically being Spider-Man's more fun than the boss battles. In all Spider-Man games, I've never really enjoyed boss battles as much as I've enjoyed just being like normal ass Spider-Man, like swinging around and killing generic baddies, you know?
Yeah. The Rhino fight was literally just me standing behind the thing and waiting for him to ram into the thing 8 times.
Yeah, it's pretty boring. But I suppose on that note, we probably should move on to like the second half of our conversation here and talk a little bit about like the actual meat of the game, like get into the specific levels and boss fights. I'm just gonna start it out here and bring up my least favorite part of the game, because we were talking about it enough earlier, the Venom chase sequence. I'll go over my experience and then you can go over yours. So when I knew it was coming, and like I remembered it not being as bad as what it actually is. It is so terrible. For the first half, it's fine, where he kind of sits and waits for you, and it's almost impossible to fuck up in the first half, in my opinion. Like he will sit specifically and wait for you to catch up. Unless you're like running backwards, you're probably gonna get past like the first little chunk. And like it's fun. He's like throwing little quips at you as you get close to him, making little jokes, and it's like generally like kind of okay. And then you have to go through like this really, it's funny at first, and I remember especially being a kid, I thought it was just hilarious when you start going through the building and you're crashing through stuff and like people are screaming and shit, and then like you jump out and then you get to the second half and like Venom is a fucking bat out of hell in that part, and you have to be like on your fucking A game. And I swear half the time, whether immediately outside, like immediately once I get out of the building, it's like a 50-50 on whether I can actually keep up or I just like fail on the spot right there. And it didn't really feel like there's any like rhyme or reason to it. I was doing the same thing like every time. And it was just agonizing. I probably had to go through it like 20 times. And I know exactly why they have that little like bit in the middle of it all where they're like running through the building, is they're masking the load time to load the next area, which is why they make you sit through it. And it's like an unskippable cutscene basically. But it is just terrible when you fail in the second half and you have to watch this cutscene over and over and over again. And what made it even worse was my version, or my emulator, had a glitch where when I'd come out of that cutscene after going through the building, my guy would get stuck in the wall temporarily and then pop out. So
dude, that happened to me too.
Really? Yeah, so I had to fail. Like it was, I couldn't get past it until I changed some settings in the emulator. I couldn't get past it. It was just super frustrating. So what was your experience with that with that part of the game?
Oh, it fucking sucked. I had to use the save state. It was like the first time I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna use the save state. I'm gonna play it the right way. This level happens. I'm like, yeah, fuck that shit. I'm using the save state.
I didn't even think about using save states. I probably should have, since I was also emulating it, but I was just toughing it.
Yeah.
Damn, man, you're smart. I should have used a fucking save state. It was so miserable. It was so fucking miserable getting through this section.
God, well, the thing of it was like, I like failed it like 5 times before I realized that I should be save stating. So I watched that stupid cutscene like 5 times. I'm like, wow.
Funny
watch
the
that first step, Parker. It's a doozy.
Yeah, you have to, and then like they try to make it somewhat bearable because the voice lines do change every time you go through, and they're kind of like randomly generated. But even when they do that, they're like randomly generating one of 3 lines every like 5 seconds. You know what I mean? Like there's only so many different.
The fact that we noticed that because we failed it every like so many times is, I don't know, man. Maybe we're just bad at the game.
Maybe, I don't know. But
yeah, that little pissed me off.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the worst part of the game. Like, I don't really understand, like, why. I don't know what they were thinking with it, to be honest. It's just like so miserable because the controls are already so clunky that like you're basically praying to God every time you web sling. So not only are you like praying to not just fall to your death every time you are trying to keep up with Venom, but you need to be extremely precise with controls that are very not forgiving. Like,
that was the level where I was mashing R and hoping I would cling onto the building the most.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and sometimes like I mash X because that like grabs me on, that will like grip onto a wall, I believe, like automatically if you press it for me, PlayStation 1 controls. But sometimes I'm mashing it so fast that I press it and I grip and then like I realize it, I'm like, oh shit, but my finger's already pressing it again, and then I let go and then I fall to my death anyways. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I did that shit.
You watched the Angry Video Game Nerd, right? He's playing that one Spider-Man game. He jumps off the building and falls. It's like, well, why'd you jump off?
I mean, yeah, that's basically the experience I had most of the time. I mean, honestly, when the game is letting you go through the level at your own pace, like the controls aren't that big of an issue.
Yeah,
I can look over it like pretty easily. Especially, I think the worst part is like the web slinging is very strange, where it's almost impossible to like aim where you want to land. And I think that there's some code in the background that like intentionally like pulls you towards like the nearest like wall or body of land, because like there's times where it seemed like my like Spider-Man like sucked onto the building when I didn't feel like I was gonna make it, and it feels like very unnatural, but like for the most part it works because the game has code written in it intentionally making it so you won't die. But when you're trying to go fast and you don't trust the system and you're like fucking up and falling to your death, it gets really frustrating.
Yeah, I think web slinging wasn't perfected back then. Like in Spider-Man 2, like if you play, you could probably like tell the difference immediately. Whereas in this game, you like web sling twice in a straight line, and then like, yeah, you just kind of like latch onto the nearest like floor or wall.
Yeah, it gives you like an extra little oomph, you know, if you're not gonna make it, from what I could tell. I don't know if you felt the same way, but like that's the way it felt.
Like, I know it kind of like sucks playing with it, but at least for this, it's kind of like you can kind of excuse it because they haven't perfected it yet. The hardware wasn't quite there yet.
I mean, as a kid in 2000, I was like blown away when I was
on... You can web sling!
Yeah, I was blown away on the rooftops. I'm like, you mean I can go anywhere I want? You know what I mean? Like, that was just fucking mind-blowing to me.
In reality, you're just like going in a straight line. The levels are a lot smaller than you remember.
Yeah, I mean, there's like buildings and stuff on the sides, like especially like in the little opening bit, that are like, hey, you can like explore a little bit. There's like 3 extra buildings that have nothing on them if you want to go on top of that. You know what I mean? It's yeah, they're trying to do eventually what they end up doing later on in the more recent Spider-Man games, but you know, for the most part, for me, it works. It just does not work in the Venom chase sequence. It is like the game was not built to have this level in it. It just isn't, you know. Anyways, now that like probably the worst part. I mean, I guess like what is your like second least favorite part of the game outside of the Venom part? Like, did you have like a least favorite level?
Oh man, what else sucked? I don't even...
I mean, if you gotta think, I have like a pretty good candidate for my least favorite section of the game. For me, it's the police chase sequence, because it's really fucking boring. It has nothing to do with like the controls or mechanics. It's just the fact that you have this is one of the time, this is the only time that you have like these police officer enemies essentially to fight against, which I mean they're not any more unique than thugs, but they're at least like a change of scenery in terms of like an enemy style. But you don't even really get to do combat with them because you're just kind of like running, holding forward on the analog stick, going from building to building until the next small section that you need to do that for again. Yeah, it's just so this is one of the moments that I use one of the suits because I dislike this section so much. The Captain, or yeah, is it Captain Universe Spider-Man suit makes it so you can't take damage. And honestly, the game is built already where you're never gonna die by taking damage in this chase sequence. It's just like damn near physically impossible. You'd have to be like intentionally getting hit by bullets or standing in place to actually die. And the reason why I use the invincibility of this suit in this section is I don't know if you
go faster, right?
Not just that, but like every time you get hit by a bullet and take like 10 damage, like you get put in like a hit stun, right? Where he like reacts to it and he's like, oh shit, like I got hit. The Captain Universe has no hit stun, so you can run through it, you know, a little bit faster by not being constantly put into hit stun by taking like 5 damage or whatever. So I know it sounds like cheating using it, but like honestly, there's no way you're dying. I did die in that section actually because I fell a couple times because of the wonky controls. But like, you know, you're not dying in that sequence anyways because you're not fighting anybody, you're just running. The only positive part I'll bring up about those levels is the Green Goblin Easter egg in one of like the cranes or whatever you want to call it. You can go inside of it, find some Spidey armor, and there's like a bunch of jack-o'-lanterns and drawings on the wall for Green Goblin, which is a really fun and cool Easter egg, but in a terrible section of the game.
I actually missed out on that. I forgot about that. I do remember it.
You do
I
remember
it now that you brought it up. Like, cause I think I remember like you guys going in there in the playthrough, but when I was playing through it, I didn't think about going in there.
Yeah, and that was a part of the fun, you know, playing it growing up was finding like the little secrets and stuff. Yeah, it does have a good amount of it. It's definitely a love letter to like the Spider-Man franchise overall. Like, there's a lot of effort put into it, but you know, it's just like the limitations or like just the design choices on some of the levels. Like that sequence in particular just was not the best. Did you think of anyone that you disliked more, or you just kind of like in agreement?
Yeah, that chase scene, I remember just like turning my brain on. I was like, well, I'm not dying. I'm just gonna like press forward, run through this.
Yeah, very boring.
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't remember like disliking any level like so hard. Like there was this one where you had to like aim the web, and I didn't really know how to do it for like 5 minutes. But once I did, I was like, oh.
In the sewer section?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, man. Like
they don't
it's
really
like,
tell you.
In the PS1 game, they say L1 targeting mode, and he says it really quickly, but I remembered it from playing it, you know, all these years. And actually, as a kid, I got stuck just like you did because I didn't catch what he said, and I'm like, he was like, I need to use my L1 targeting mode, and I'm like, wait, what the fuck did you just say? And then I'm like lost. I'm like, how the hell do I get past this? And like, I had to like start over the next day because otherwise, I think if you die and get back there, he won't talk again. You have to literally start the whole console up again to even hear it, or completely leave, like exit the level and reload it to get that line of dialogue again. But I got stuck on it too as a kid.
On the N64, they just give you a message and it flashes briefly.
Oh my god, doesn't even say it? Okay, that's terrible. Wow, so okay, well there's another difference, right? Yeah, so when that section came up, actually, I remembered it, but then I was like, man, I could have been using this L1 targeting like the whole game, because it's actually like super broken if you need to like get onto a precise part of like a wall or building. You get what I'm saying? So like the imperfection I was talking about with the system where like you're just swinging wildly and you're guessing where you're gonna land, if you use the L1 targeting mode, however the programming is done, it will like put you right where that cursor is, like directly there. It doesn't come up in very many instances where you need to be that precise, but in the moments it does, like earlier on in the game, I was like, crap, I wish I would have known about this from the beginning, because there was like times where I'm missing things by like a pixel, and then I'm wasting like 3 minutes like fumbling with the controls trying to get to like a secret room on the side of a building or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of wish they just told you that in the beginning of the game.
Instead, they tell you like about halfway through, probably. What about a least favorite? What about a least favorite boss fight? I think I have a least favorite, but I'll let you go first.
Probably just Rhino, because you don't even touch him.
Is there anything in particular other than just the fact that you have to wait for him to like ram into shit? That you dislike, or
no? That's literally it. It's like, why not actually like fight him? Instead, you have to just sit there and like wait for it.
Well, he's Rhino, man. He's got thick skin. But yeah, I get you. But it'd be nice if you could put him in like a hit stun, and then you could actually punch him or something. But you're just stuck. I guess I'll make a comment on it. I thought he moved like too fast, almost. Like there's sometimes where I'm sitting there and like I'm like chilling and I'm waiting for him to charge, then he's charging and he's like breaking the fucking sound barrier. He's going so fucking fast. Maybe I just have boomer like reaction time now, yeah. And I can't handle it, but like sometimes I'm like, dude, this is fucking annoying because he's just running so fast. And like he kind of will sometimes, if he didn't hit like the pole like directly on it, he would kind of like clip around it and then hit me, and I'm like, dude, come on. For me, I would say my least favorite boss fight.
Oh yeah, second least favorite is Scorpion.
For me, it's not Scorpion. I think Scorpion's too easy for me to dislike, even though the dialogue's really annoying. I mean, you can go over to the Scorpion fight if you want, but like, what did you...
Yeah, it's too easy. Jameson. That's it. That's why I hate it.
Yeah, I didn't think it was too bad. It's very easy, so to me, it didn't bug me a whole lot, because I just got through it so fast. But for me, it's actually the very yeah, for me, it's like the very first Venom fight, because, I don't know, fighting Venom in both of his fights really kind of just boiled down to, like, do you have enough of a health bar to kill him to me? Because there isn't really, like, a pattern to punching him and dodging, because you either punch him 3 times, and then he hits you for free and then disappears, or you, like, punch him, try to jump away, and he like pulls you out of the air and then gets damage on you, or like if you try to run away from him, he like runs you down and then hits you, or if you're on a wall, he pulls you off the wall and hits you. Like there isn't really any way to properly dodge his abilities, and the only way that I was able to beat him was like by knowing that under a dumpster there's like an extra health pack that you can pick up, and like that's just how I got through it. I don't know if you had like the same experience, but for me, like he just always gets a free hit on you, and it's really just like, do you have the Spidey armor, and do you know where the hidden health packs are? That's like how you get through it.
I had the Spidey armor that you collected from the level before, so I didn't really have too much difficulty with it.
Yeah, but I mean, it does feel like you need it. Otherwise, you have to get the health packs. Like
I burn through it, but
yeah, it just feels like unavoidable damage.
I didn't really know his pattern.
I don't think there is one. I was trying my best to find it, dude. I really was, and I just could not find a pattern. I'm like, I feel like no matter what, I'm taking a hit if he shows, or like when he shows up. Like, it was, to me, it was like pretty poorly made. Did you have a favorite boss fight?
Not really.
Well, if you had to pick a favorite, what would it be? If you had to pick.
Yeah, I have a confession to make. I didn't actually beat the game before coming on this podcast.
How far did you get? What's your favorite out of how far you got?
Well, I got to the... What's that boss fight's name? We were, like, on the pillars and stuff.
On the pillars?
Or not the pillars, like the circle thingy.
Like the different floors? Mysterio?
Yeah. Yeah, Mysterio, but I didn't, like, play it yet, but I know, like...
Oh, how that one goes? That one is a good boss fight. I actually probably would agree.
Like, he's, like, huge, too, so it's, like, there's a scope of it.
And it's probably got the best music in the game, too, like, the best song. Even though it's, like, still on a loop, but, like, it loops well enough where it's, like, probably the best song in the game. It kind of slaps. But, yeah, actually, I would probably agree. I was...
predates Shadow of the Colossus.
I was gonna say my favorite was Carnage, just because I like Carnage as a character so much, but that's probably, like, the best boss fight is Mysterio. And, like, yeah, I guess for anybody watching that maybe doesn't know, or listening, that doesn't know how the fight goes, you basically have like these 3 stories that you need to jump up and down on while like avoiding like Mysterio hitting you and different obstacles, and you have to like blast these different parts on him to break off, and then eventually you end up beating him. It doesn't sound fantastic, and it's like not fantastic, but like in a cast of mediocre boss fights, the Mysterio fight definitely like kind of stands out as one of the better ones. But if I had to pick one that wasn't Mysterio, I'd probably pick the Carnage fight, just because there's like more going on in it than a lot of the other ones. In the Carnage fight, I don't know if you remember it, but there's basically like this big weird like rainbow bubble in the center that's been generated. And I guess like Doc Ock used it to try to control Carnage. And you kind of have to like trick him into like running into it. And then he takes some damage, resets, and then you just kind of do that a couple times. But it's like a decent enough challenge, and like Carnage is like, the voice acting is like entertaining enough when he's like screaming at you and trying to kill you. He's like yelling, die, 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 constantly trying to like fucking murder you, and it's like intense enough where it's enjoyable. But like I said, when you're talking about a lot of mediocre boss fights, the Carnage one isn't anything all that special. It just kind of stood out in my mind as one of my favorite ones. Do you remember the Carnage fight at all?
I don't think I got there.
Do you remember it from when we played through it the first time?
I'm like watching the video now. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. So you're like re-experiencing it for a little bit.
I'm trying to like jog my memory. Yeah, I hate my 15-year-old self, by the way. It's so cringe.
Oh, you're watching the old Let's Play. That's a real fucking classic. I love it.
Dude, these videos have like 100 views.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive for what it was. I don't know how
Dude,
the hell it got so
part
many.
1 has 1,000 views.
I know.
Yeah, let's go.
We were popular, man. we were famous.
God damn it, I hate myself.
Did you have like a favorite area or set of levels, anything like that? Because I have like my favorite section. To me, like when the game isn't really split into levels. To me, it's split into sections. There's like the opening section where it's like the thugs and the thieves and stuff up to Scorpion. And then there's like the sewer section, like following after it, and there's like the symbiote section, and then there's like the end game section when you're like in the submarine or whatever it is, going to like Doc Ock. Did you have like a favorite section of the game, or a particular level even? The opening bit?
Yeah.
Why did you like it more than the others?
Probably because it felt the most Spider-Man-y. I don't know. You get to web sling a lot more. You get to go on the rooftop. Or it's the ceiling, I mean.
Yeah, I thought like the stealth aspect of the game like just kind of goes out the door after the opening section for sure, which is weird. Because I think like
you're the Solid Snake.
I think he's actually pretty well suited to be like stealth. Yeah, you can feel in like the newest Spider-Man game on the PS4 because you can take out enemies quietly. And it fits his playstyle pretty well considering you can go on ceilings and kind of go wherever you want. It's like, it's actually pretty like fun being stealthy with him, but like really in that game, there's 2 levels where you actually get to do that. And for the rest of the time, like, it doesn't matter where you are. The lizard people and symbiotes,
they're gonna look at you.
Yeah, they notice you on the ceilings. So, yeah, I mean, we were definitely talking about that earlier. How the game takes such a drastic change of gameplay styles, where to me it was more fluid when there were more options at your disposal. Like, you could actually be sneaky. You're actually going on rooftops. Going around, you know what I mean? For me, it's not like my favorite section. My favorite section's always been the sewer levels, and like the reasons I gave for like the hardware limitations earlier end up being the reason why I like these levels so much. The lizard men actually pose like a decent combat threat, even though they're not like balance. Like, they see you no matter what, and you just kind of have to fight them. But before, I thought the bad guys were a bit too easy to take out, so it was a bit more entertaining, like killing the lizard men. I also like the aesthetic of it all, but like the puzzles end up actually being kind of entertaining, and just like the ways that they try to burn your time, I'll say it that way, to not like go through the levels super fast, end up being kind of fun. Like, I like the maze. I like the door puzzle, and then I kind of like the combat and just like the general like swinging around sections as well. Maybe it's a little bit like nostalgic. Do you remember the train level in particular in the sewer section?
Connor being so bad at that. I didn't have any trouble with it, but
so we were talking about like the level sizes being super small. I remember watching a video a long time ago. I don't know if you've heard of these YouTubers, but they do like the out of bounds like videos. Have you seen those?
I think I saw one for like Crash 1.
Yeah, so they pull the camera back, right? Like, so you can see the whole level and like see things that are like out of bounds. And that train level is like, it feels like the train is like just going straight, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty sure what's actually happening is you're going in a circle or some shit like that. Like,
doesn't seem
the
like
entire time. Yeah, it doesn't feel like you're going in a circle, but you're like literally going in a circle like the entire time, which is why you see the same like background scrolling through constantly. And then I think there's like a wall generated in front of you, so you can't see that you're turning the whole time, so it looks like you're going straight, but really you're just fucking going in a circle.
Fucking voodoo magic, the fuck?
Yeah, it's a really interesting little trick that they did. But I will say that that's my least favorite part of the sewer levels. It's like just about as pointless as like the police chase, except this section's actually hard. It feels like if you don't have like the Spidey armor that you could pick up earlier and like a fuckload of webbing, that you can't really get through, because the only way I could like figure it out was I just kept spamming like the down triangle or side triangle. Yeah, down triangle, which is like you go into like a little cocoon and explode. Actually, did you test like a bunch of the different like Spider-Man abilities out, or did you just like play it straight?
I literally punched and kicked through that level.
Did you really? I don't know how the hell you could have managed to get through that like that.
Maybe it's easier on N64, I don't know.
I mean,
I don't remember having any difficulty with it, but
I had a hard
maybe I
freaking
should have
time.
used the webbing. I don't know.
I had to keep going into like the cocoon and like blow them all off the train. Do you know the move I'm talking about? Did you ever use it?
Yeah. I'm like,
yeah.
Wait, when did I think of that? That would have been easier.
Well, you use up a asshole to webbing, but I like was intentionally not using it earlier on in the game, knowing that this level was coming up, so that I could use it on this level instead.
God dang it! Yeah, this is like my first time like actually like going through the game, so I don't really like know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I kind of get you on that. It's some of the stuff is a little cryptic, but I think a lot of like older PlayStation and Nintendo 64 games are a bit like that. Like they don't really just like lay everything out on a silver platter for you. You're just kind of supposed to like do shit and like figure it out.
Oh, they'll tell you, but it'll be for a split second, and you won't catch it.
Oh, you know what? So I feel like we've been talking about like the earlier half of the game a lot. So I think we should definitely talk about like the later levels, even if maybe you didn't get quite to that point. But you were talking about how annoying like the symbiotes were in particular. I found them very annoying as well.
Yeah, you literally need that like flame web to deal with them, and they don't always give it to you. So
yeah, once you get the flame web, like they're very manageable. Like I'm fine with it, but like your initial like meeting with the symbiotes, it takes like 8 punches to kill one of them. It is so like ridiculously absurd. I'm just like, when they gang up on you, that's when it's terrible, because
there's also a level where they just straight up don't give you it, or at least I never found it, the flame webbing.
I mean, the first level you don't get it. The first time you ever see the flame webbing is like in that newspaper room.
I actually died to the newspaper thing.
You fell in the newspaper roller. As a kid, I was curious. I was like, what's gonna happen if I go into the newspaper roller and it just fucking kills you?
I'm like, wait.
Doesn't it do like a funny cutscene though?
You just get sucked into it and you die. It's like a split second.
I thought they did like a cutscene. I guess they don't. I'm misremembering because I didn't do it this time around, but yeah, I did think it was a bit funny that you could just like off yourself in the freaking newspaper machine. They must have known kids were gonna get curious. But yeah, I mean that level wasn't like particularly good, but God bless like the fire webbing. Like at least that was fucking available. Sometimes they don't give you enough. That's the problem.
Yeah, I just want to like kill all the enemies, and they don't like to do that. It's the first time they don't let you do that. I'm like,
I mean, they'd let you. Well, okay, what's annoying is like the spawner, right? Is like the spawners are irritating because like the symbiotes are already take like 1,000,000 hits to kill, and then you have to focus on the spawners, so they're getting a bunch of like free pot shots at you basically, and it's just like, and when you know, it's hard to like kill the symbiote, go back to the spawner and kill the spawner before another one ends up like coming out. It's just like, I get that they're trying to up the difficulty at this point, but basically the symbiotes are just like the same thing as the lizards, but they take more hits. They like, I think they even might do a little more damage. I guess the only cool thing about them is they can like go on the ceilings.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Like that's an interesting mechanic.
This is where I was safe.
Yeah. So it's like it's kind of cool, but
if you go up in the walls and ceilings too.
Well, so did the lizards. They also would shoot at you, but like sometimes they just straight up like morph up onto the ceiling, which is neat-ish. It's still annoying. Like
that's like the only thing I like about the symbiotes is their design. It's like they like goop around. It's like, okay, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, they leave little marks on the ground too, which for a PS1 game was like kind of cool to see that like they leave a trail, even though it eventually disappears. In terms of like the symbiote levels, I mean the first instance of them is kind of cool. Like you're like rescuing the people in the office and whatnot, and you usually are left to like one symbiote per room, so it's not like obnoxious. Like you're trying to kill 3 of them all at once, or something like that. But the caveat being like immediately after you're doing that, you go to like this elevator level, and I fucking hate the elevator level. That actually is a contender for one of my least favorite levels.
Oh, I forgot to bring that up. Yeah, that level sucked ass. I hated it.
Yeah,
it was so bad.
I mean, I'll let you try to take the reins on this one. Like what?
Well, you have to stay on it, or else it'll chew the wire and it'll fall and you'll die. It's game over. It stops.
You have to stay on it? I thought you could jump off.
I mean, like, there were moments where you had to, like, jump off and get it to go going again. But, like, if you, like, don't stay on the elevator, symbiotes will, like, go on the elevator chew on the wire, and then like have the elevator fall, and then like take out all the symbiote floor things, and then you fall through the floor and die. That happened to me.
Wow, really? Okay,
yeah,
so
like,
that must
like
be an N64 thing, because in the PS1, literally every time I play that level, I go on a pillar at the very top, and like they will. What's weird is they will still hone in on me from like 1,000 feet down in this level and still shoot projectiles. But like if you stand on a pillar, the pillar blocks all their projectiles, but you can literally just like stand there and wait for the elevator to go down and not fight a single enemy up until it gets to like, you get to the part where you have to hit the button. You hit the button and then you just wait again. And then you just go to the end door of the level and just don't fuck around with any enemies. That's how I did it this time around, because that's the way I used to do it as a kid.
I didn't know about that, but yeah, they like what happens is if you fail, oh my god, my spider senses is tingling. They're chewing through the wire, and then you die, and then that's it. You have to start the whole level over.
That's what's most aggravating about that level, if you're doing it like legitimately, not being cheap like I was, is the elevator goes so damn slow, and to start all the way over again is like so aggravating. It's like the same thing as like the Venom level, having to go through like that cutscene over and over again. It's like just an elongated cutscene where you're just sitting there pressing square a fucking shit ton, just waiting for this damn elevator to go down. It's not. It is not the most thought-provoking gameplay, I will say. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Oh man, that level sucked.
I
wish I forgot about it.
I do remember sometimes too, I would like kick one of them off the elevator, but they'd fall on a pole, and they wouldn't like. They'd stay on it, and they would like start to hit me with projectiles from above me on the pole. And like you can't really see where it's coming from because of the fog distance, so you're just getting fucking railed from like off screen, and it was like really aggravating. I don't know, there's just like small things about the game that, like the fact that they have like unlimited sight basically in this section is like really strange. Like they can see you from like 3 screen lengths away and keep hitting you with projectiles. It's like, it's just weird.
Yeah. Fucking symbiotes. Yeah, I have nothing else to say about that.
Yeah, so I mean, like, after that, I mean, you kind of go through the, like, furnace levels, which are fine, I guess. I found them to be annoying. It was just, like, the same stuff that you were doing before.
It was forgettable for me.
Yeah, it was just like more of the same. And then you fight Mysterio, which is, arguably the best fight in the game. Probably is the best fight in the game.
That's where I left off.
And after that, you finally get into like Doc Ock's submarine, I believe.
Yeah, I was gonna play it yesterday, but then I like fell asleep. I was like, oh crap.
Yeah, I mean, you're not missing out much. The ending bit isn't all that interesting.
Like, I was gonna finish the game. I was like, then you called me. I was like, oh. Yes, we're doing the podcast.
Hey man, you're on the clock. Let's go.
Yeah, I probably should have been better about it. Oh well.
No, I didn't really complete it all the way either. I've played it so many times. I have good enough memory.
Yeah.
I beat it, but I kind of like cheaply beat it, if that makes sense. Anyways, like I said, I was using like different costumes and whatnot. Like I used the invisible costume in the furnace levels, because I remembered how annoying the symbiotes were that are like patrolling around. So I just like went invisible and killed all the spawners and then went to the end, because I was like, I just don't feel like pressing square a bunch. Like, it's a great game. Like, I feel like for the past a little bit we've been just like dogging it. Like, I really do like this game, and it's got a lot of charm, but like, especially later on in the game, the combat is just pressing square, and then there's not a whole lot else going on. And it gets a little redundant to the point where I'm like, I just don't want to like, it's not skill anymore. Yeah, it's like, it's not skill based. Like, yeah, it's cheap. Like, oh my god, you just can't handle the difficulty. It's like, no, it's not difficult. It's just like getting aggravating. I just want to get through, to the next boss.
My theory on this is that I mean, it's just like a beat 'em up, and it just comes with the territory. It's like obviously like not breaking any new ground with the genre, and most beat 'em ups are pretty, monotonous, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they are. We actually just played one recently. A little side tangent. We played like the Simpsons arcade game at a bar.
Oh.
And like I remember liking beat 'em ups a lot more than what I did. Like I was having enough fun, but I was like, man, dude, I loved beat 'em ups back in the day. Now I just feel like I'm pressing forward and pressing the punch and kick button a bunch. Like that's how I felt playing this game again too. I'm like, dude, I'm just pressing square a shitload. Like when's
I mean, better than pressing C left.
True enough.
It's an actual button.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just going to the next cutscene, which is like, I mean, why the PS1 game is probably the superior version. Any way you look at it, outside of maybe the Dreamcast or whatever. But like, without the cutscenes, like, I just don't know if I'd have any incentive to really beat it. Like, I think just reading a bunch of comic book panels would get a bit boring. Actually, that was one thing I forgot to bring up from earlier, but yeah, before we get on to like the end bit segment where we talk about like the last couple levels in the Doc Ock fight and stuff, I really liked like the artwork for like the comic books. Like once in a while during the loading screens, you'd get a like a comic book cover, basically being like, this is like the chapter for whatever, and it would like have cool cover art, and like it kind of give you this feeling like you are playing Spider-Man in the comic book, like playing out the story in that issue, if you want to call it that. Like did you kind of get the same vibe? Does it have the same loading screens in N64? Do you get those little panels?
Oh yeah, they do. I liked them a lot actually, and there's like in the menus and stuff, you can like look at them again. Like,
yeah, it's like really
galleries.
Yeah, it's really fun. Like I going back to it now, it was a part that I kind of forgot about, because it's not like in the forefront of the game, but playing through it again, I'm like, that adds a lot of charm going into it. Like it really does feel like you're playing out like, a
comic.
A volume of a comic. Like you're on like, okay, volume 1, like I'm playing through volume 1 or whatever, and I'll moved on to volume 2. It kind of gives it like an episodic like feel to it, like, you know what I mean? It feels like a real comic a little bit, like you're getting to play as it. So I thought it added a lot of charm. It was a small thing that I forgot to bring up earlier. But yeah, so moving on to like the end game bit that we didn't really get to. Do you remember a whole lot about it, or?
I do remember like the Mysterio fight, the Doc Ock fight.
I mean, obviously the end game chase sequence. I gotta say, I think there's like 3 levels or 4 after you beat Mysterio, and then you get like 1 level in like this warehouse before you drop down into the submarine. And then like in the actual submarine, I think you get like 3 levels, and they're not very good. I guess I'll describe them since it seems like you didn't play through it or remember it. Maybe I'll jog your memory. But there's one bit where you basically are just like running through a corridor, and there's a bunch of laser turrets trying to like fire at you, and there's not really a whole lot to it. You just kind of like web sling forward and move fast enough so the turrets don't hit you. And you do that for like 3 sections straight, and then you're just like at the end. And then like after that, you have another section where there's like an infinitely spawning like symbiote generator in the center of the room, and there's 3 other rooms branching out, and you just have to like hit the switch in the correct, I don't even think you have to hit it in the correct order, but you just have to hit all the switches and not die to the symbiotes basically on your way to the next room. I think you do have to do it in the right order. Anyways, and then it like closes all the valves, and then all the valves like break, and it stops creating like the smog that's like covering the world or whatever. And then, man, that might only be like the only 3 levels actually after the Mysterio fight. I don't think I remember another one. And then you just fight Doc Ock and Carnage after that. Do you remember those sections of the game at all?
I vaguely do, yeah.
They're not great. They are okay.
Man, we're just dogging on this game. Oh, it's so good, and by the way, here's why it sucks.
It's like good enough, you know. It's like engaging enough to get me for me to keep playing. But like,
it's like a good weekend rental, but obviously those aren't a thing anymore. So like,
right.
If you have like a weekend where you're not doing anything, and you just happen to have this game, I don't know, spend like a couple hours per day on it, and you'll beat it. It's like, I don't know, like a 6-hour game-ish.
Man, I don't even know if I'd go that far. Maybe you could stretch 6 hours out of it.
Like
first playthrough, maybe.
First playthrough, yeah.
Which is nice. I mean, some people just don't have the time.
Yeah.
But like, I think you really hit home on it when you said that your favorite section is like the beginning part. Like, I think that feels the most Spider-Man compared to the other ones, because literally from the lizard section on, I can't think of any of those levels that you need to web sling almost at all to move around. You're like indoors the entire time, pressing square. That's when it becomes the most beat 'em up esque, is the ending game bit that we're talking about. The only like thing that's nice about it is that you are Spider-Man, right? So like you can still like use web slinging to like cheat, like to get to areas a little quicker and stuff like that. But yeah, compared to the opening bits, you're really not swinging around as much as, I think most players would probably like to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just don't like... Because I haven't really thought of I probably could, like, web sling around more often, like, afterwards. But I haven't really thought about it. Like, I'm just running through the level.
Yeah, you just don't really need to. Unless you're trying to get through, like, a little quicker or something, you know what I mean? It's almost like
speedrunners are like using it all the time. I'm like, wait, what?
Or something. Right, exactly. It's like
I don't know what the world record is. Let me look it up.
Probably quick. It's a super short game. I mean, like, honestly, cheesing through the levels isn't even that great because the levels are so damn tiny anyways. Like, I don't even know how you could cheese through some of them to get through them any quicker. They're already very fast.
There's a lot of Spider-Man games. A lot of Spider-Man games.
Yeah, but then basically, like, the very end bit, one of my favorite bits is actually running away from the mutant symbiote Doc Ock. And this is, like, I think the only time that a symbiote version of Doc Ock exists. So this is pretty unique to this game. But he's, like, genuinely pretty terrifying, and he's screaming at you the whole time that you're running away. It's a pretty genuinely intense moment. And you have to, like, web swing towards the camera, which is a little awkward, but it works good enough where, like, for the most part, when I had made a mistake going through it, it felt like my fault. It's a pretty good endgame sequence. It's not like doing anything like crazy, but I just really liked the novelty of having like a symbiote Doc Ock. Do you remember that section?
Symbiote Doc Ock. It's like he's chasing you through a hallway, right?
Yes, yeah.
Oh yeah, I think I remember it now.
You think it's cool, novel?
I mean, I haven't heard of a symbiote Doc Ock before, so...
Well, there you go. I mean, that's already cool and novel. That's as cool and novel as it gets.
Hey, if you want a symbiote Doc Ock, play this fucking game. I'm watching, like, you play through it right now. You're struggling so hard to, like, get through it.
It's rough. Like, getting used to having the camera facing, like, you're going towards your face is very strange, because you don't have to do it at any other point in the game.
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't like any game that makes you do that.
Well, maybe it's not as cool as I was making it out to be then.
Well, no, like, the scene itself, it's like...
Everything's exploding as you're, like, running through. Like, it's kind of cool. For the PS1, at least, watching everything just blow up.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'd have to play it and see for myself, but yeah. It's a good enough game overall where I don't know. It's like a solid B plus, but it's not like an instant classic. It has its flaws.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it
Overall.
has to do with like the time it was released, obviously, and stuff like that. But yeah, do you have any like we'll wrap it up by talking about like our thoughts on like the music, and we'll finish off by like just talking about the story. But did you have any like closing thoughts on the gameplay? Any like last second things that you thought of while going through it?
I think this is like the first 3D beat 'em up that I like went through. It was alright. I don't know if I'm gonna go back and play it again. I don't really have any like sort of nostalgic towards it, but I thought it was good enough. Like I wasn't like too frustrated when I played through it. That's probably about it.
Yeah, the game is fairly easy. Seems a little geared towards kids, I think, too, which makes sense as to why I loved it so much.
How old were you and Connor when you first played it?
Man, probably 10. Or 8 to 10 or something, which is weird because I was born in 96, so by the time it came out I was 4, but we probably didn't play that game till like 2003, so I was probably like 7 or 8.
I mean, that's kind of like how often are you going to play a game when it comes out, like new, you know?
Yeah, I think I had the greatest hits version too. I had like the green label and everything, so probably got like some discount, like $20 version or something on greatest hits. Everybody else is out there playing MGS and shit.
Yeah, I don't remember like playing a game like as it came out like new like very often, unless I like really wanted it.
Yeah, I don't have very many instances growing up like that either. Honestly, a lot of it was just bargain bin or greatest hits versions, which were cheaper.
So playing a game like a few years old like that isn't like too out of the ordinary. Yeah, the music. I don't like it. That's it. That's what it is.
I'm like split on it because I like it, but I like hate that it is on such a short loop, and I really would like to know.
Maybe with the N64 it's excusable because there's really no space to fit music, but on the PS1,
and maybe they were trying to have both versions in mind, but like when you're having all these FMV cutscenes, you're basically saying that like the N64 version is an afterthought already, if that makes sense, saying that. So like,
I mean, they both came out around the same time, right?
Yeah. So like, if the N64 is already an afterthought, why not boost up the PS1's version soundtrack a little bit? I don't like the basic like 10-second loop is like fine. The first 10 seconds is like, oh, this kind of slaps. Like when you have like the bomb above your head and it's like that bass riff of like I'm like, oh damn dude, he's like killing it. But then when it does that for like a whole minute, I'm like, okay, I don't need to hear that bass line for a whole minute straight. Like, it was kind of cool for the first like 10 seconds, and then I'm like over it, man. So I'm very conflicted because I think it's like good. I kind of like the electronic like guitar sound to the whole thing, but the fact that it's just on a loop constantly like kind of kills any good like anything that made it good for me. So I think the soundtrack's like a C. It's like good if it was longer than 10 seconds long before it started looping.
Yeah, I don't know why it loops on the PS1. I don't know, maybe on the Dreamcast it has like actual soundtracks. Who knows?
That would be an interesting to see, actually. I mean, who knows? Maybe that problem is totally fixed and we're like preaching to the choir. But yeah, I mean, I at least like for the PS1 and 64 version, like the soundtrack is lackluster. And interestingly enough, I forget the guy's name, but he's coming out with a new video game console, which is kind of weird. He's coming out with like the Amico, like the something Amico, like Intellivision Amico or something like that, like some old company. He's coming out with like a new game console, and it's like supposed to be like an old school gaming kind of like console or something. I didn't look into it very much, but I just was doing a little research on like the composer, and I saw that he's still like in the industry and he's actually coming out with a console. So that's like quite the jump, going from making a PlayStation 1 Spider-Man soundtrack to making a video game console full blown. So yeah, kind of fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that there's like a lot of these like mini consoles coming out recently. I'm like, why would you want any of these?
I think it is the Intellivision Amico or something like that. I could be totally wrong.
Like, why are they like doing this retro Intellivision thing? Like, who wants this? Like, who asked for it?
I know. it's strange.
Like,
people are just gonna play on PCs and PS5s.
Like, there's like an Atari one. Like, I don't know. I just don't think they like know what like customers want nowadays.
Hey man, I think it got a Kickstarter and enough people backed it to get it off its feet, so people apparently want it. I don't know who, but people apparently want it.
People really want that PS5 killer.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, the same 3 consoles for like the past 20 years.
Yeah. So to go back to the game a little bit, I actually did forget one thing. I thought that initially the replayability of this game was like pretty high because I was already talking about the unlockable costumes, but there's also hidden comic books you can collect throughout the levels that you can find, and you know, Easter eggs like the Green Goblin like little hideout in one of the levels, and there's like different other little hideouts and stuff like that that you can find throughout the game too. But what kills it for me is the fact that you could just put in a cheat code that just like unlocks all the comic books and all the costumes. There's been times where I've thought about playing this game and like actually playing it to 100% complete it. But the problem is that when you could just put in a cheat code to like unlock it all, well, not just that, but like if I were to show somebody and be like, hey, look, I 100%ed it, like, that doesn't really mean anything when you can just punch in a code to unlock it all. So, like, for me, I think the comic books should have been kept to, like, legitimately need to find them to unlock them instead of, like, putting in a code. I think having a code for the costumes is fine because that's, like, fun, right? Like, being able to use the costumes in, like, subsequent playthroughs and just, like, you know, if you're having a hard time through the game and you want to use, like, the invincible suit, I think a kid should be able to do that by putting in a code. Like, that's cool. But like having a collectible item, like that'd be like being able to punch in a code to collect all the gems in Spyro or all the stars in Mario 64. Like, I feel like it takes out all the accomplishment from the game.
Yeah, I don't know. Going overboard with cheats is I don't know.
It's like, kind of
very playing the game.
I think it's a very Neversoft thing to do. I'm pretty sure you can do that kind of stuff in the Tony Hawk games on the PS1 too, but don't quote me on it. I very well could be wrong, but like maybe you get something special if you do it legitimately instead of like putting in a fake code. But
I think I like played through the Tony Hawk on N64, and like those games are known for their soundtracks. Not on the N64. They're like shitty like loops of the licensed songs. I'm like, oh god, this is so bad. Why would anyone play this version of the game? Just go on the PS1.
Yeah, that's how it is. That's how it is for a lot of Activision games at the time, actually.
Well, to see it.
Yeah, so I guess just to finish out, we'll talk about like the ending of the story. I mean, basically, like you'd stop Doc Ock and everything, and save the world. I guess we didn't like talk about the story all that much, but
well, I mean, the story itself is, I guess, kind of basic.
Yeah, I mean, it sets up a decent little like. It's like to me, it feels like a little Spider-Man like side adventure. Does it feel like a real like full blown like issue like a comic book like thing, like building up a story? Not really. It kind of feels like a filler arc or something like that for Spider-Man.
It kind of does, but to me it felt more like a Saturday morning cartoon more than anything.
Yeah, very much actually. I think that's a good way to describe it. Is the story feels like a Saturday morning cartoon. It's
just kind of like a filler episode of it.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned earlier, this was the Amazing Spider-Man, right? Like for a video game.
Kind of. I mean, it doesn't really follow the story like right on.
Yeah,
But
so I guess to be accurate, this like feels like a filler episode of that show.
yeah, something like that. You know, I mean, the characters are a little different. You have different voice actors a little bit, and like the settings a little different. But like, yeah, for the most part, it's like the Amazing Spider-Man. It'd be like if the Amazing Spider-Man did like a
spin-off.
Yeah, like a couple episode spin-off or something.
A mini-series.
Yeah, it's like, it's interesting enough where it's like Doc Ock's acting like a good guy for like the first part of the game, but you're like suspicious of him, of course, because it's fucking Doc Ock, and of course Doc Ock ends up actually being a bad guy the whole time, and he had this big plot to make everybody into symbiotes for like some grand plan. I don't remember what the hell it was. He was gonna make like a zombie army or something. It's a bit bigger than like I think the usual Doc Ock plans, which is I think what makes it a little strange, but you know, it at least keeps you going through the story, and like I like the novelty of thinking about like everybody turning into a symbiote, because the symbiote like you know, like Venom and Carnage as characters and just symbiotes in general to me were always very interesting. They were always like my favorite villains in the Spider-Man series. So to see like a little bit of a deeper dive into like the idea of people becoming symbiotes was kind of a fun like concept to me. Just not fully fleshed out because you
stop
know,
them.
well, not just that you stop them, but like they're just kind of pink blobs that spawn out of a weird ass machine.
Yeah,
so it's not like you're fighting real people that turned into symbiotes or something.
You're killing the New Yorkers.
See, maybe that would have added like some sort of interesting like dynamic, right? It's like, man, I can't kill this guy. I mean, he never kills anybody, but like, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like too that's not really a theme that really belongs in a game. That's like meant for like 9-year-olds, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Any last thoughts on the story or anything like that in the game? Anything that like stood out to you as like a cool plot point or something?
I mean, they do. I think there's like maybe more villains in the game than maybe there should. Like they have like Rhino, Scorpion. Like, why are they there?
Yeah, they kind of come out of nowhere. Like even for the storyline. Hey, even for the storyline, like Cat or whatever her name is, like Black Cat. Oh my god, I totally forgot about like how hideous her face is. I was gonna bring that up. Dude, the character model for her face is terrible. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. She looks like a 90-year-old lady that has got ran over by a fucking like some like, what is it, like the flatteners or whatever the hell. Like I'm like, what the hell? And they try to make her ass look like super juicy, and it's just off-putting to say the least. Anyways, yeah, she comes up and she's just like, oh my gosh, Venom kidnapped Mary Jane. By the way, Rhino escaped his prison. And it's like, well, that seems like an afterthought. Like, what the fuck? Also, like, Scorpion, like, attacking J. Jonah is, like, kind of out of nowhere, too, because it's just, like, all of a sudden Scorpion's just, all of a sudden, like, they're just like, hey, J. Jonah's in trouble. He's being attacked by Scorpion. And it's like, oh, like, okay. I thought we had to freaking stop Doc Ock from doing some weird, like, or, like, Venom and Doc Ock from doing your stuff. I mean, the story is just kind of weird and, like, strung along. Also, Mysterio, like, posing as you was kind of, like, weird, too. Actually, that's kind of funny, because in that game, like, you know how you're talking about, like, the Spider-Man meme where the two Spider-Mans are pointing at each other? That literally happens in this game again.
Oh my god. I love it.
Yeah, there's just, like, some, you know, I don't know, some different...
That's why I wish I had the cutscenes.
Yeah, absolutely. It does definitely detract from the experience without like the voice acting and cutscenes, because for the most part they're really good. You know, I enjoyed them.
Yeah, I got to miss out on it.
Unfortunate.
Don't play the N64 version. Unless you have to.
We're about to close out, I think, on this first episode.
You know, for a game meant for kids, I sure died a lot in it.
I kind of felt the same. But it felt like a bunch of cheap deaths. It just felt like a bunch of cheap deaths, but I think it's just like getting used to the controls and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, overall, I'd give the game like a a B plus, like kind of like what you gave it to.
Maybe less so, but
yeah, I think a lot of people
it's a good rental.
I think a lot of people have nostalgic hearts for this game as well as I do.
I mean, I didn't, but I enjoyed it enough.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of like charm, and obviously there was a lot of effort put into it, and I don't think that they were given like necessarily the most resources ever. Like being forced to use a skating engine to make a Spider-Man game couldn't have been the easiest thing to do. And
all the budget went into the voice acting, getting all the voice actors
maybe
over.
Who knows? Do that. I mean, it definitely didn't go into the soundtrack. The music, yeah. But yeah, I think they like really, it's Neversoft, man. I love like 90s, 2000, like early 2000s Neversoft. They just like, no matter what they touched, it seemed like it was gonna be gold. And like, this is one of those instances where they weren't given a whole lot of resources. They were told to make a Spider-Man game, and I really think that they did, for the time, about the best that they could do. I think it hasn't aged very gracefully, which is why we have a lot of like modern gripes with it. But I think overall, for the time, if you can put yourself in like the shoes of 2000 Spider-Man, this was the first like genuine Spider-Man experience that I think anybody got to have, up until Spider-Man 2 would come out years later. So this is kind of your first taste of real Spider-Man.
Yeah, as a guy who is more familiar with DC than Marvel, I felt like this was a good enough showcase of like, the Spider-Man universe, which probably explains why they added more villains than they should.
Right. Probably true, actually. I mean, you got to get the whole cast in there, right? Like, I think it's also a bit of padding to add more villains, just like make it a little bit more fun, add a couple like simple boss fights, just stretch the game out a little bit longer. Maybe, maybe some people's favorite villain was Rhino. Why not just toss him in there? I don't know why it would be, but like, why not just toss him in there just because?
Yeah. So, you have any more thoughts on the game?
I think that's about it for me.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about it.
Well, thanks everybody who decided to sit through this long-winded podcast about the first Spider-Man. Well, not first Spider-Man. The Spider-Man 2000 video game on the PS1 and N64. Not sure how often we're going to come out with these episodes. I think we'll iron that out later. But hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for listening or watching.